Batman is, to put it simply, my favorite superhero. I think nowadays you'll be hard pressed to find many pop culture icons that are as timeless as Batman. Countless iterations of the character have come and gone through Batman's near century long history. Some stories were dark, some were lighthearted, and then some were just plain fucking weird. And like, when you have this character going for so long, going for so many decades and near century long history, there's going to be different stories and different iterations of the character going through several different writers, and they're all going to come up with their own ideas. But I think in the end, this is what makes the character so timeless. You know, results obviously are going to vary, but at the end of the day, there's a Batman story out there for literally everyone. Which brings me to my personal favorite Batman story, The Killing Joke, written by Alan Moore. And I'm just going to tell you this right now, this book is a fucking trip. And I mean, if you've been a fan of Batman in any capacity, there's no doubt you've at least seen or heard of this comic and its iconography. And I don't think it's any secret that Alan Moore is a pretty eccentric character all on his own. So when you give him the world of Batman, shit is gonna hit the fan in the best way. As for adaptations such as Watchmen, V for Vendetta, or League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, well, let's just say he didn't necessarily agree with it. He hates his movies. Legitimately, like he won't mince words about it. He hates how his stories are adapted for the big screen and how Hollywood just kind of takes his ideas and just kind of, I don't know, he just doesn't like them. Yes, The Killing Joke movie adaptation, which was a straight to Blu-ray release that came out in 2016. But unlike a lot of anime superhero movies that just kind of fly on the radar, this one had quite a bit of fanfare behind it. For one, Mark Hamill returned to voice the Joker after basically saying that he retired from voicing the character after the Arkham series. And Kevin Conroy is once again reprising his role as Batman, and honestly, I can't imagine anyone else as Batman. Everyone just loved the original comic, so yeah, there was quite a bit of buzz going around this, and I think it's fair to say that a lot of people, including myself, were cautiously optimistic. But, as I mentioned, Alan Moore isn't credited anywhere, as far as I can see on this, being replaced by Brian Bollard, and Bruce Timm from the Batman animated series was brought on as producer. So, yeah, it all looks pretty promising, so let's talk about how they fucked it up.
First of all, I realize this is probably not how you thought the story would start. Not with a big, shiny moon, or a city that could look stunning in spite of itself. Or me. But I wanted you to know that before the horror began, before it all came crashing down, there was a time when capes and cowls and fighting crime really was exciting.
Yeah. So, Batgirl is basically the main character for this movie, or at least the first half of this movie, with Batman somehow being relegated to a supporting character role, playing the mentor/strict father figure to Barbara Gordon, and making sure she doesn't fuck everything up, because she mentions that she's only been doing this for 3 years, and it shows, because she's woefully out of her depth on this. But honestly, who can blame her?
Your father gave me his file. He's a nasty combination of narcissist and sociopath. He'll have you smiling right up to the moment he cuts your throat. I haven't had to deal with his type of crazy in a while. I don't want you to either.
What are you saying?
Don't go near him without me.
Excuse me?
No matter what.
We're not exactly attached to the hip.
We are on this. You want to work with me? You do what I say.
And that's it? You speak and the words are law?
Yes.
That's right. Batgirl is going up against Batman's ultimate nemesis, the crazy, charismatic, psychotic, this guy. Eh? You were expecting someone else? No, this guy. Paris, France. Do you get it? Yeah, so Paris is the uncle of a mob boss, and he's ultimately trying to take over his uncle's empire, and while that is going on, Batgirl is constantly moping around, getting her ass handed to her at every turn by this dude, and arguing with Batman about going after this dude, and Batman is constantly telling her no. It's so boring!
How does that work? Where does that expression come from? Doesn't make any sense.
Make it stop!
No, it doesn't make sense. Life doesn't make sense. No way, you know.
I mean, just fuck. You know, sometimes in life, we all gotta do a little bit of soul searching. We all gotta separate ourselves from what we're doing just to do some soul searching and just ask ourselves the difficult questions. You know, what is the meaning of life? What are we doing here? What's our purpose? Why did Hulk get Wolverine and Old Man Logan? The most pressing of all is why, oh why the fuck is this here? I mean who, why? You know what? We better move on before I have a fucking aneurysm. It's at this point that something becomes very apparent, and that is that Batman's characterization in this is really fucking weird, as is his dialogue and just his character in general. It's like they tried to strike a balance between making him brooding but also empathetic. But it's just done in this really weird way where he's delivering speeches and monologues and exposition, and it just doesn't sound natural. And his role in the movie is all over the place, going from mentor to father figure to lover, all within 20 minutes with no real rhyme or reason. So that the incident that happens later somehow resonates with him more. Speaking of weird, stilted, and unnatural dialogue.
It was just sex, for God's sake. It doesn't have to mean anything. It's not like we have to care. I don't care. You don't care. We just go back like it was. That's all. Please.
Anyways, they do eventually put Paris away, and the Joker finally shows up. And thank God he did, because the movie's instantly elevated by his presence. And we get the Joker's backstory about him being a failed comedian who's just barely scraping by and has a kid on the way. So of course, he turns to crime and him becoming the Red Hood. Not that Red Hood, the Red Hood that was included as a skin in Injustice for some reason. And we eventually see him become the Joker.
I'm itching all over. What's that?
Genuinely, it's great stuff. Which begs the question of why we had to sit through all of this shit to get to this. Oh, and trust me, I know why. And we'll get into that later. And from here, it's much more faithful to the comic and is pretty much shot for shot adaptation as well.
Me.
I thought you'd be interested.
Yeah, well, I had some really interesting nightmares.
Barbara!
I wouldn't worry yet if I were you. It's just a psychological manifestation, common among librarians. She thinks she's a coffee table edition, though I can't say much for this volume's condition. I mean, there's a hole in the jacket, and the spine appears to be damaged.
You scum! I'll...
Will you? Refreshing to hear. Not by the book. Speaking of which, this one won't be walking off the shelf anytime soon. In fact, the idea of her walking anywhere seems remote. But then, that's always a problem with softbacks. Oh God, literary discussions can get so dry, can't they? Finish the commission, take him where he needs to be. And please, do be careful. After all, he is topping the bill. It really is a shame you'll miss your father's debut, Miss Gordon. Sadly, our venue wasn't built with the disabled in mind.
Why are you doing this?
To prove a point.
Pretty iconic moment, right? Yeah, so let's talk about why it doesn't work. This moment in the comic was never really about Barbara. More so, it was more about the Joker getting to Jim Gordon and breaking him down psychologically. Jim Gordon obviously being Batman's best friend and confidant in Gotham. So the idea is that with the Joker breaking down Jim Gordon, by extension, he breaks Batman and gets him to break his rule, which is heavily implied at the end of the comic. So basically the Joker shooting Barbara was just a means to an end to get to Batman, and you could argue that this is the goal here. It's just that putting them in this weird relationship is just a little overbearing and unrealistic. And on the one hand, I get it. It's because if this is going to happen to Barbara, the audience needs to understand who she is, what she's fighting for, and grow an attachment, like an emotional attachment to her, so that when this does happen, it has an impact. It's just, for me, it just doesn't work personally. And you know what? Honestly, it's not a bad idea on paper. It's just a terrible execution. Batgirl's story sucks and it's just not that interesting, and neither is she, and she's just annoying. And here's the thing, I like Batgirl. I really do. I've read some Batgirl stories and some of them have been fucking great, especially the stuff by Gail Simone. But God, this just wasn't one of them. While I understand what they were going for, it just didn't work for me. Meanwhile, Batman is looking for the Joker and honestly just comes across as really incompetent.
Nope. Which is funny.
Funny.
Yeah, he usually comes around here right away. Like before it's even on the news, he broke out of the nut house again. He's had a roll.
You'd think the most important thing for him is to...
What?
Have a good time.
So why do you think he hasn't been to visit?
I don't know. Maybe he found himself another girl.
Hey, somebody wants you.
Master detective, billionaire playboy, philanthropist, and he has an entire fucking Batcave designed to investigate shit like this. And he's going around Gotham holding up a picture like, have you seen this man? And also he has some weird existential crisis about the Joker and what they've been going through and how they're not so different, and just, I don't know, he talks about him as if he's his long lost lover and just ends up simping for him like a lot.
He drives me. How can two people hate so much? without knowing each other. Perhaps you'll kill me. Perhaps I'll kill you. Perhaps sooner, perhaps later. You know that, don't you? I need to know, for when that time comes, that I'd made a genuine attempt to talk things over. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want either of us to end up killing the other. But we're running out of alternatives. Perhaps it all hinges on tonight. I don't know what it was that bent your life out of shape, but maybe I've been there too.
Anyways, Batman eventually rescues Jim Gordon, and the ending is pretty much beat for beat again, and it's awesome. And that was The Killing Joke, and look, honestly, it's serviceable at best, but woefully uneven at worst. Like I said, once the Joker hits the scene, it's more faithful to The Killing Joke that I know and love, and it's just fighting with myself with this movie. And I guess the animation is pretty nice, combining digital animation with CGI in a way that's pretty seamless, even if it is a little jank at times. And despite the mostly god-awful material, everyone does well in their roles, and we have some classic actors here, which should come as no surprise. And look, while The Killing Joke is my favorite comic book of all time, I think it needs to be understood that it's not going to be for everyone. It's one of the darkest, twisted, and just fucking out there stories, like Batman stories, ever. So, just understand that if you're going to read the comic. It's Alan Moore to a fucking T. As for the movie itself, like I said, it's really, really uneven. Like, the latter half just keeps on building and building upon itself, and it's the thrill ride, no pun intended, that the whole movie should have been. But we had to sit through Batgirl just being a brat for like half an hour before we got to that point, with Batman weirdly getting pushed off to the side before the movie remembers, oh yeah, he's the titular character. And I'm not really a fan of Batman in this either. Like, as I said, like, they couldn't really decide whether to make him brooding or empathetic or just a simp for the Joker. That moment where Barbara gets shot is cool to see, but it doesn't work within the context of everything else. But the Joker pretty much steals the show here. Like I said, it just takes a major upswing the moment he arrives. But honestly, that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. It's just a shame that everyone else around him sucks. Although seeing Batgirl become Oracle is cool in isolation, but it's not earned. I'm sorry. Yeah, in my opinion, it just sucks. But enough about that. I'm off to watch the new Batman movie, which I've heard is fucking amazing. So, yeah, if you enjoyed this, feel free to like, comment, and I'm really close to 50 subscribers now, so if you want to hit that sexy red button down below, I would really, really appreciate it. And thank you for watching all my videos so far, and thank you for watching this, and I'll see you guys soon.